Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Portland Cocktail Week presents Fortaleza on the Fives on Cinco de Mayo. As part of this partnership, Fortaleza has teamed up with Portland Cocktail Week to bring you 6 amazing cocktails throughout the day, and we've created a fantastic recipe guide that you can download at pdxcw/Fortaleza on the Fives. So right now we're going live for our distillery tour, and to start us off, we actually have a special guest, Haba Flores, who is in Guadalajara, close to our distillery, and she's going to be making us a very special cocktail with our Fortaleza Añejo, which is aged 18 months in American oak, and brings to the table a very nice notes of butterscotch, caramel, and very smooth. It's one of my favorites, and as my dad will tell you, that if you see him drinking a white wine, it's probably not wine that's in his glass.
True, I've seen Guillermo Magic with Añejo, so.
So perfect. How about what are you making for us today? I think it's called the Panacea Margarita.
Yeah, so first off, thank you for inviting me for this amazing Cinco de Mayo experience, Billy, and the family from Fortaleza and Portland Cocktail Week. I'm making this Panacea Margarita, which is inspired by all the remedies I've been through my life, starting with my mama chamomile and honey tea, and ending with my dad love for beer after a long, tiring day. Panacea, so it's anything that can soothe any illness or any malaise. So I reckon blending these two alongside with Fortaleza Añejo is the perfect situation solver for any time. So first I'm going to explain a bit how to do one of the main ingredients, which is the remedy syrup. In the case of the remedy syrup, I use honey. This is mesquite honey, but anyone you can get, that's okay, from market or from your supermarket, that's fine. You're gonna use some chamomile. You can source it by the bulk, or you can get also like in the small tea bags. Same thing, whichever you can get in the market. And last but not least, to bring this hoppy and slightly bitter profile to your mouth, you're gonna use any IPA. Can be from session to double IPA. This style of beers have like very intense bitterness, but also very floral and citrusy on the nose, so I reckon go pretty well while complementing the profiles of Fortaleza Añejo you mentioned before, caramel, butterscotch, and vanilla. And of course, last but not least, we're going to put some lemon juice in there. For me, lemon juice is slightly like more gentle for this sort of profiles to not oversaturate the Fortaleza Añejo. So we're going to go super quick for this. The inspiration, as I told before, was both my mom and my dad, but also I want this to bring this as an experience, so pretty much anybody can make this at home. Anybody can have some honey on the counter, some chamomile. So let's pop this in. First up, we're going 60 mils of Fortaleza Añejo. That'll be 40 and 20. Once again, for our remedy syrup, what I did was infuse some for chamomile in a regular teapot, strain it, mix it with the honey, and last but not least, mash it up with the beer. It's okay if you do it cold, because when you do it hot, you might lose some of the profiles of the beer. So it's okay if you do it cold. Then you're gonna put 40 mils of our remedy syrup. That's 40 right there. Don't get too scared, too shy of the syrup, because despite we have this idea it has to be too thick a syrup, as long as it's sweet enough and it holds all of these profiles in the nose, you're good to go. And last but not least, we got to go 20 mils of the lemon juice. Pop it too hard. Look. That's 20 mils for us. And we're going to put some couple of icing here. So I was really excited to watch Damien's, because I really find really amazing that people in the US and abroad can source Mexican products like chocolate Ibarra, which is like the best. So yeah, source your Mexican product, guys. They're gonna That's us. Last but not least, we're gonna rim our glass. This is, of course, a take on the most classic Mexican drink, which is the margarita. We're gonna rim it with an oregano, chamomile, pepper, and salt. We're gonna rim this a bit. You can go from half rim, full rim, cover rim. I don't know how much you like salt, but I love it. So we're gonna pop a couple ice in here. Da-da-da-da. Yeah, I find it hard to bartend while sitting the seat.
Would be challenging. That looks delicious, though.
Thank you. I mean, next time you're around the distillery, you can come visit us at Salon Candela, and I can make some panache margaritas for you and everybody who comes visit us.
Excellent. We will for sure. So
Yes.
hopefully we'll bring the industry tour back for Day of the Dead, but we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Please. I mean, that's one of the most amazing experience I've ever had. I had a couple of chances going as invited and also working at the bar. So both situations are really, really amazing. So yeah, I hope, fingers crossed, next November is the next chance to see all of you guys' beautiful and talented faces at the distillery. Last but not least, I'm going to garnish it with flowers. Again, this is very up to you. If you can source edible flowers, go for it. Or if you even grow your own, just make sure they are suitable for it. So you don't want to contaminate your amazing drink. You can go as subtle as a small, like a what's the name? It's like an asylum. Or you can go as big as chrysanthemums or poppies. So there you go.
Awesome. Cheers, Haba. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, guys. Have fun at the virtual tour and hopefully see you soon.
Of course. Perfect. So, everyone, I think we are going to... Excellent. There it is. There's our distillery. Now we're in Mexico. Again. So, awesome. I'm assisted today by one of our brand ambassadors. His name is Kobe Desmet. Kobe came to us. He's Mexican in his core, but by way of Belgium, he was born in the wrong country. So he just didn't know it at the time. But this is our distillery, and today we'll do the process first, and we'll walk a little bit through our process here. So, and then our history second is what I meant to say there. There's one of our stills. And Kobe, if you want to take us towards the agave, we'll start there. I don't even know why that's out in front. That's not good. We normally need all of our equipment. So we really, I'd tell you guys, this is, you know, we have the family history to it, but when we were starting out, we ended up using one of our pieces of equipment came out of our family museum. So now here are some agaves that were just dropped off. You can see what we like to see on the agaves is a close shave, right? It takes agaves anywhere from 6 to 8 years to reach maturity. And what we also like to see occasionally is what we call pinto, which means some of the darker spots on there, like those like kind of red spots that Kobe's showing you. That means that we're going to get a better yield out of the tequila. We're going to get more of a flavorful tequila, and just in terms of sheer production size, we'll get more alcohol out of those because they're ready to be harvested, right? So that's really what you want to see on your agaves is this nice clean shave that's very close to the piña, and that the pencas are very small. There's no extra leaf on there. A lot of humidors will get paid by weight, so they'll leave more leaf on there, but that sort of detracts from the quality of your tequila. But some of your bigger volume producers really end up, you know, they need the weight because of how much they're trying to crank out in a day. Whereas we're focused here on making some artisan and really the best tequila that we can. So I don't know, Kobe, if you can scramble over that or not. It probably violates some OSHA standards, but if you feel comfortable moving around there, go ahead. I think we might be going into the front door. So once we get our agaves in, we'll remove what we call the cogollo from the top of the plant. That's the center where all the new leaves are growing out of. And that material is very waxy, doesn't contribute a lot to the flavor or doesn't contribute to a flavor profile that you would like. So that gets removed and thrown away. And apologies, it's a little grainy. The Wi-Fi and cell situation in Mexico is a little slower on our data side here. So I'll wait until Kobe gets into position to tell you guys more about the oven. But back to the agaves, remove what we call the colgoyo, and then that agave is ready to be sort of tetrised into one of our ovens. So we've got two ovens now. Oh, perfect. So this is the door right by the other side of that agave, and just beyond that mountain of agave there is the entrance to our caves. So this is the first thing an agave sees when it comes in. Yeah, there are the caves. So if you ever come down on a distillery tour, we normally do some fiestas in the caves. And it's a great time. My dad ends up working the bar so that our industry guests that come down don't have to. And he only knows how to make four kinds of drinks. So Blanco, still strength, reposado, and añejo. So you only get shots. He's like Bill Murray a little bit. But once the agave come in, we're going to take them inside. There's some cooked agave for you guys. The green agave will go into our oven. We're going to steam cook it. The whole process takes about 36 hours from, oh, thank you very much, Lou. I appreciate that. We're number one. There's perfect. Look at that, all that cooked agave ready to come out. So what's pretty cool is our oven is brick, and occasionally you can see all the streakage on the doors there a little bit to Kobe's left. You know, the pressure in the agave, the pressure that the steam puts in the oven, sometimes occasionally makes the oven look sort of like it's weeping, you know, agave syrup out, which you can see on the sides there, which is pretty cool. But that door gets bolted on, and then we pump in a bunch of steam in there from our boiler. We just got a new one. Our original boiler was built in 1903 in Ames, New York. And so I was telling you guys earlier, we normally use all our equipment. I really mean it. We had kept that old boiler alive just about until last year. And then unfortunately it cracked on us, which it looks like we've repaired now, but it sort of shifted in its protective sleeve. And so we thought, oh, you can see the crack down there at the bottom. We thought that it might be better to invest in a new boiler rather than have something go catastrophically wrong. So Kobe's got our new boiler out here, which shout out to, I think we got it from the UC system in San Diego when they were done with it. But this is on the back side of this is right next to our other newer oven, which is about a few more tons than our current one. That looks like it's in process, Kobe, is it? Oh no, it's empty. There you go. So that agave will get loaded in there, and then you can see the grates on the floor where that steam's going to come up through. There you go. Right, and so that steam is going to take the raw plant and turn it into something that is very tasty for us. So those grates are also what we call the mieles, which is the first run sort of agave syrup we'll collect. And that is a very dense, in terms of amount of sugars in that liquid, and very critical to the production process of tequila. So there we've got some cut up agave, some cut up cooked agave, right? And what we're essentially going to do post-processing is we're going to take that agave, stack it right next to our wood chipper there, and it'll go through there, come out the other end nice and chopped up. We'll push that into our taona, and that'll be good to go. So you don't stick your hand in here. That's my great-grandfather lost 3 fingers in a similar accident. So we haven't had anybody lose any finger parts yet, thankfully. But here's our team now. They're doing the washing process, which takes place after the taona process. So Kobe, if you can switch us around to where the stone is so we can see that real quick, that would be awesome. So perfect, right? So we're going to take all that bagasso that comes out of the wood chipper. We're going to lay that down in what we call taona, which is that circular pit. The wheel is going to process over it and just crush it, trying juicing it for us. And you can see right under where Kobe is standing, right by the bottom of the right screen there, is where that agave syrup will flow to. Once we're done with the crushing process, we're going to go through the washing process. And the washing process is to help us get as much of those sugars that are left over that we can off, right? So we want to make sure that we're actually processing them well, but there's enough sugar at the end of this to, Venetia, I love your comment there. It is very, very sweet. So it's not sure how big of a glass one would drink of it though. That's for sure. But this is essentially a sugar water mix at this point, right? So that bagasso that we call there is going to go back out to the fields to go compost, and there's still a little bit of sugar on there. So if you were really pressing, you could get more yield out of that, is what we like to say. But for us, Fortaleza is just after the cream of the crop here. So, right, we just want the best flavor profile. So we think that a lighter processing is more helpful. So once we're done with the washing process, though, those guys are going to take that out to compost, and that juice is going to go down into our holding tank. And Kobe, maybe you can show us that real quick, which is perfect. Yep. Now, don't drop your phone in, because that would be the end of the tour. That would be bad, right? But there you can see the dark, sort of amber-looking liquid. And then that is what we call jugo de agave. That'll get pumped up into our fermentation tanks. And then we'll go through our fermentation process. So, Kobe, is that ladder secure? Are you able to get up on that if we have any in motion? That would be pretty excellent to observe. But we're still doing things pretty much unchanged since the 1800s. So we're still using a wooden fermentation vat here, right? And we're still doing open top fermentation as well. There's no accelerators or anything. It's just yeast in there. This is how they used to do it back in the day. Oh, perfect. There you can see there's one. It looks like it's probably just about to start. So maybe Kobe's looking around for another one here. Okay, perfect. That one's in process. You guys can see the little bubbles on top there. Oh, and that one's finished. So, or you know what, that one's in process. So that is a nice thick layer of foam up on top there. And that is the yeast in there. Yeah, it is a very sweet aroma, Blake. That is 100% correct. It's pretty magical smelling, I think. But that is the yeast eating those sugars and turning them into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So one thing we actually did change though, since my great grandfathers had started this, was they used to have what they call a bateador swimming around in there. And so we no longer have that person, because those people used to expire, right? Because you're swimming around the big fermentation tank, that level of carbon dioxide is rising and rising and rising. And sooner or later, you're getting more CO2 than you are oxygen. And you sort of fall asleep, and then you sink. And that didn't turn out very well. So from there, though, we'll come out about 5-6% alcohol by volume, and we'll go to our copper pots for distillation. So we just recently added a third still, which is pretty exciting for us. It's the factory's had been closed since the 1960s, but before that, it was mostly just its original equipment. You can see which one is the newer there, right? But our first pass is now on a 600-liter still. Our second pass, it looks like they're actually repairing the stills today too. Our second pass is either on our 400-liter still or our 250 one. So the little baby one, which I think is outside right now, is what they're looking like they're fixing. So, but on the first pass, we're going to come out about 30% ABV. You have to go through 2 passes to become tequila. And so on the second pass, we come out at 46%, hence our Blanco still strength, which is undiluted from the still. So we came out with that product. Actually, a few of our brand ambassadors came up with that idea, and the goal was that we should be sharing directly what comes off our still instead of just as well bottling to our standard 40% ABV. And so it's definitely greener. And looks, Kobe, are you going to get a sample here to taste maybe? That's perfect. I feel like we're, with you holding the camera up there, like we're actually doing the tasting ourselves. So if you have any still strength on hand, here's what looks like. Well, that's what Kobe's about to have right now. So, we get a little bit of a lag there. That's all right. Perfect. So now, how is it, Kobe? Is it a thumbs up, or does it need some more? Yeah, thumbs up. All right, perfect. So awesome. So from there, we're gonna take that product, and if it's going to be bottled as still strength, it'll go straight into one of our holding tanks to come out as a still strength bottle. Otherwise, we're going to take it and plop it into, dilute it a little bit with demineralized water to become one of our Blanco tequilas, which is 80%, which is the industry standard, which people ask why that is. And in Mexico, a lot of tequilas are bottled at 38%. If you're bottled at under 40%, for US law, you have to label your spirit diluted spirit, or you have to be like a liqueur or something. And so that's just one of the weird tangential things we've ended up with as an industry. So, right. But all right, Kobe, if you want to take us maybe over towards the bottling and barreling, that would be awesome to see. So our aged products, we'll take the still strength that comes off of the still, and we'll put that into a barrel. And for 6 months, if we age it for just 6 months, that's what our repo is. If we age it for 18 months, that's what our añejo will come out as. The legal band limits on a reposado are 2 months to a year, and then añejo is anything over 1 year. The CRT, the Consejo Regulador del Tequila, just recently came out with the extra añejo definitions. So I think you can start labeling at extra añejo after 3 years, which is a pretty good amount of time. And for those of you that are very curious, we are working to improve our barrel capacity to lay down some barrels for extra añejo, but we're still probably 4 or 5 years away from that, realistically at this point. So, but I know that some of you have had it in the past, and it's something we're looking to repeat. And if you're able to find this is the barrel room, or one of our barrel rooms, I should say. If you're able to find a lot 42 or 43 of our añejo, that actually has extra añejo mixed into it. So the average age of those bottles is about 40 months. And that's because we had a brief period where we looked at launching our añejo at 12 months and realized that wasn't going to fill up to our promise of getting it to 18 months. So we were going to use a little bit of our extra añejo there and bring that into the 18-month range, and we ended up using all of it by accident. So those bottles are 40 months. But you can see, so for our barrels, we're using used Jim Beam or Jack Daniels barrels mostly, but used American oak, right? So the whiskey, people can only use them once, whiskey and bourbon. We take them, we rechip the barrels and we rechar them. We try and do a medium toast on them, and then we fill them up with tequila. So one of the more interesting aspects, though, about this, by the way, is that the CRT, the Mexican government that facilitates tequila production, is very intense about labeling, right? So if you were to break that paper seal right there, you couldn't bottle that tequila, right? The CRT likes to observe you filling the barrels, sealing them, and they'll come, they'll date it, they'll sign it, and then they want to be there when you open up the barrels. So, ooh, and there's a sneak peek of some of potentially this year's winter blend. So I know some of you are fans of the winter blend out there, and we are doing our best to make those batches a little bit bigger so we can get them to some more people. I saw some people in Las Vegas were wondering where their allocation was this year. So we've run a bigger batch of it this year, and we'll hopefully get that out to you guys in October or November, right in time for the winter holidays. So, and now we're heading over to our barrel facility, or our bottling facility, I should say. Sorry, Kobe has taken us up toward the top, which is fantastic. This is where we do our tops. And you guys have noticed it's probably one of our distinguishing features, right? These little guys here, which are our agave plants, of course, right? Little piñas. So, and there's a nice view of the distillery. And here's our team hard at work. So the tops themselves are actually an epoxy and resin mix. You can see them right there. We make these all ourselves. In fact, there's only a couple things we don't do on the property. We try and grow as much of our own agave as we can, so we use everything grown on the property. We make our own tops. The only thing we don't do is really the bottles and the labels. Is we're not, commercial printers, and we don't have glass making facilities. But if you guys give us maybe 10 years or something, we'll look at bringing that in house. But so then they're dipped in green paint, and then they get sanded back down to the white, and that's how we came up with that color scheme. There are some ones that are finishing. Here's one of our team, sanded it back down. So our guys are pretty skilled. You can see he's got tape wrapped around his fingers too to protect his fingers just in case he bumps into the sander. So our team's pretty good at this though. And there he is, just making another top. So look at all those finished ones, just waiting for bottles to be put on. What's pretty cool, this might be exciting for some of the operations people out there, but we've just recently increased the number of shifts we're doing. So we appreciate all the love and support you guys have given us, but we are working 24 hours, 6 days a week right now. So we're still doing Sundays off, but we might look at adding that in the near future if the demand keeps up. So we're pretty excited about this, though. We recently just crossed our 100th employee in Mexico, too. So it's been an exciting moment for us, you guys. And I'll take 1 second here to go on a little bit of a diatribe, but, a lot of rhetoric right now about buying local and shopping local and whatnot, right? But when you're buying a bottle from a small producer, be it us, or somebody like some of the smaller mezcals out there, or another smaller tequila brand like Arete, that those dollars that you're spending on that bottle are going to go right back into their people, into their equipment. They're not just going into, not to name any names, but certain celebrities' pockets, right, who are already doing well enough. And here is our bottling room. So it looks like we're not bottling today, but Kobe will just kind of walk us through the process. So on the bottom right of their screens there we've got our bottle washer. So we wash the bottles with tequila, and that tequila gets tossed just to get rid of any contaminants. Then bottles get filled on our filling machine, and this machine was actually in our family museum, which is pretty cool. So one of our team members who worked, her mother worked in Sauza actually on this machine when it was still in use. And so she came back and taught us how to make it, how to use the machine and how to make it bottle again, I should say. And Kobe just held up the little mallet that we have there. I know this is probably a great enemy of a few of our back bars who get cork stuck in there. But we really want to make sure that the tequila gets to you guys uncontaminated. So that's our little tapper there to make sure those corks stay in there. And one of the downsides, unfortunately, of hand-blown bottles is that the necks all come out a little bit different. So we're working on some solutions to those, you guys. There's our spot where we do our labeling to make sure each bottle is proudly displaying our Fortaleza logo on it. And there you go. There's some of the production numbers. So trying to do as much as we can. We're doing about 280 cases a day is sort of what it looks like. But there's almost a half pallet there ready to go out. And maybe, Kobe, if you want to take us over a lake, and then we'll switch over to the screen share here, and I'll do a little bit of our Fortaleza history. So there's some more pallets ready to go out. And then I'll let Kobe wrap up here, and I'll prepare some of the sort of history of how we got started for you guys. But this is, our little distillery that we love showing people around, and our doors are open any time of the year. So except for really the week between Christmas and New Year's, most of our team is off. But if you come down, you want to see the distillery, poke your head in there around, we have a totally, open facility policy. So, and then we can also organize, in addition to a tour, we can organize a lunch for you lakeside if you like. So we have a contractor that comes in and does our lakeside lunches, which I think we have a lunch going on right now. So Kobe might skirt the side of them, but it's definitely a real ranch. So if you want to look over the right here, we've got some goats and sheep and chickens. Sorry, goats mostly. And then our horses are back up there as well. So I think we might lag here as Kobe's moving along. So we'll just we'll let him catch up for a second to show us the lake. We also have a turtle, which is sort of an odd, really not sure how that ended up in there, but it's a wonderful place to stop by and visit. So, you know, and we're 3 hours inland from Puerto Vallarta. There's the turtle. So we love to have people. We love to have people stop by, and my dad loves it when fans come by and say hello. So, and perfect. Here's our little taco stand, which we're going to get up and running this year when people are able to travel again post-pandemic. And these are some of our mango trees. So there's the facility, and in the background you can see the mountain of tequila there. So awesome. Well, thank you very much, Kobe, for the digital tour of the grounds there. And I'm going to share just a little bit of our history now of how we got started. So thank you, sir. I'll see you in a little bit. All right. Let's get this up. All right, perfect. So, oh, awesome. I think he's gone, but I'll tell him you say thanks, Lou. So, well, now you guys have seen the process, so let me tell you guys just a little bit about the history. And we got some of the photos in here, and I'll show you guys sort of where we're going for the future. So when we first started out, it was about 2002, and my dad had this idea that he wanted to make tequila again. So we refurbished that little distillery, which had just been closed. They had locked it up in 1968 and sort of walked away. When my dad tasted the first tequila that came off of there, he had sort of an epiphany. The plan was to make 100% Taona milled and then a roller milled tequila as well. But he loved the juice so much that he said, I'm going to just go with Taona milling. So that's how we got started. We got the name actually from the distillery itself. So the distillery itself is called La Fortaleza, which means the fortitude in Spanish, right? It was one of 3 facilities that my great-grandfathers had. The other 2 were constance and perseverance. So it's, I feel like a lot of little, moments that you kind of chuckle at to yourself, where we had 3 distilleries all named after these enduring values. Then we ended up selling, and then we end up coming back into the business, with fortitude, right? So, but there's a little to show you guys just saw. And so we make 4 products there. We've got the Blanco, Still Strength, Reposado, and Añejo. Still Strength I'm missing on this guy. But we are in the heart of tequila. And so here I'll go through a little bit just about the regulatory framework. And let me take a minute to just tell you guys a little bit about Cinco de Mayo as well, which is not really a national holiday in Mexico at all. It is, I believe, in Puebla, but it marks when the Mexican army defeated the French, right? Mexican Independence Day is actually in September. And so thinking about that when we're celebrating Cinco de Mayo, we still like to use it as a good occasion to mark, Mexican history and Mexican heritage and celebrate Mexican culture in the United States, which obviously the U.S. and Mexico are closely tied in terms of, fates and partnership and trade and people, right? So, and tequila appears to be just out on fire on growth in the U.S., which is awesome. But there's an appellation zone for tequila, much like there's an appellation zone for champagne, right? So you can see here, it's the entire state of Jalisco, parts of Nayarit, Guanajuato, Michoacan, and Tamaulipas. See out here, this is the area out to the right, the Tamaulipas area, my father or my great-grandfather actually argued against including that in the denomination of origin meeting, but the president of Mexico kicked him out because one of the president of Mexico's cousins wanted to distill tequila in Tamaulipas. So we've got this nice, colorful history. And this is the Mountain of Tequila. It's where the name actually comes from. There was about 30,000 Native Americans living here when the Spaniards arrived. They believe that one of the beliefs of where the name tequila comes from is from that language that meant place of cutting, because when this mountain erupted millions of years ago, it left obsidian chunks all around the tequila area, which were good for arrowheads, knives, jewelry, right? So if you're in tequila and you visit, we've actually got a little store inside our museum. We carry a few artists who do obsidian jewelry, which turns out very beautifully, especially when you see it reflected in light. You get this sort of like dark rainbow effect on it. It's pretty cool. And when I was a kid, I thought obsidians were shiny. I think I'm part goblin or something, because I was like, ooh, shiny rocks. And I'd walk around for 2 hours, and I'd come back to the house, and my dad would go to pick me up, and I'd gained like 20 pounds. He'd be like, what's in your pockets? And I was just loaded with rocks that I had picked up. So, but you can see the top sort of third of the mountain is missing, and that white part right in the center there. I'm pointing at my screen as if you guys can also see my screen, but you have to look on your screen, is called the spire. That is where the lava was coming from, and that, I believe, is sort of the center outlet for the volcano. There's a beautiful little mirador, which is a little lookout on the way to the tequila. It has some awesome fun facts. So if you're driving out to tequila, make sure to stop there, take a look, and here's a better view of that mountain. Now, this is the town itself, and one of the really cool things about Mexico is it has looked after its sort of countryside towns very well. So tequila is what we call a Pueblo Mágico, which means a magic town, more or less, and is actually UNESCO World Heritage Site. So Mexico has the largest number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites, I think, by absolute number or by amount of geography, which is pretty cool. But I would tell you that the town has been almost a little bit like frozen in time. We still have cobblestone streets, which are very cool to walk down. When I was a kid about 20 years ago, I still remember that a few people would ride their horses to work. So it's very laid back and relaxed. There's only 2 stoplights in the whole town. And this road that you can kind of see arcing through there on the bottom, that very angular one, that's really the only blacktop road in town. So it's pretty neat. And of course, same with its namesake, there's about 29 tequila distilleries in the town. So just walking down the street from our distillery, which is outlined in blue, that's the property that we're at, you walk past right next to us in that white building is Orendain Tequila. There's a couple that are right next to them that make Casa Sayas. We walk past our friends Arete on the way walking towards the town square. Then we walk past what Sauza is now owned by the Beam Suntory people. We walk past them, and then Cuervo is right next to the town square. So just a couple of the major brands right off the town square. Casa Noble is also made just outside our picture off to the left, up by that road going up towards the mountain in the top left, just under where it says La Fortaleza. But it's pretty neat. If you haven't ever been and you're a tequila fan, I definitely recommend going to visit us. We're 3 hours from Puerto Vallarta, so if you're looking for a vacation, we recommend flying down there, taking a day, coming to tequila, and seeing everything, spending a night even, and then heading back. But it's very beautiful. And we have 2 seasons down there. When can you guys visit again? So that's a great question. You can. So we're accepting tours now. There are some COVID restrictions. We limit to 5 people wearing face masks and stuff like that. So if you're comfortable traveling then, there's no restrictions in Mexico on travel currently as well. So, but we'll have the door open for you whenever you guys come down to visit. So we have 2 seasons. the rainy season and dry season, right? This is a picture during the rainy season. You can see how green our trees get, how green the mountain is and the fields beyond. And then you can see why this is called the blue agave, right? And this picture does it some justice, but what is really trippy is when you're driving from Guadalajara to Tequila and you're going over these kind of rolling hills that are the countryside, and you just see acres and acres for as far as the eye can see on either side of you. Feel almost like, you almost forget that you're on the road as you're looking out through the window. You kind of feel like you're on a boat or something, just rolling through the waves of agave, which is pretty neat. So now here's a picture of my dad's house down there, actually, and our observation point, which a number of people I think have hiked to. But what's really neat, and it's something I didn't talk about at the beginning here, is actually this is the same view that we use on our añejo bottle, and I'll show you guys that real quick. So there it is. So you guys can see the house there is the same, right? And when my dad was designing the brand, he wanted to make sure that everything on the bottle had a connection to the place, right? So on our Blanco, we've actually got that same image of the distillery that you see here, right? The distillery looks exactly the same. And he is and still is very anti-brands that just make up something about the brand, and I'll go into a diatribe on this here now, which is pretty good. But our friends over at Tequila Matchmaker, if you ever look them up, you just give them a quick Google. It's a beautiful service that runs tequila rankings and flavor profiles. If you say, hey, I like this tequila, what other tequila should I try? Very knowledgeable community. Our friends Grover and Scarlett Shandgren run that. They're always talking and pushing the agave industry forward, which is pretty cool. We took some seedlings just a few months ago. Grover's doing some research on that right now. He's helping grow little baby ones, which is pretty neat. But there's a lot of contract brands out there. And so when you support a brand that's run by a celebrity or, a bigger corporation, right, you're not really supporting the people down in Mexico. You're supporting, a celebrity who doesn't need your support at all, just like Jeff Bezos doesn't need our support anymore either, but that's a totally separate topic. So, so the brand, we wanted all the brand iconography to have a attachment to the area, and I'll show you guys we'll take this one step further. So this is our winter blend bottle for those of you guys who got a 2020, but this is actually my dad, myself, and my eldest daughter on here. Her name's Everly. So, and then my dad's dog with him. But we try and keep everything, directly related to how our brand operates, and everything that you can come down and you can see and you go, I know this brand is there and will be there. So a little bit of history about the town. We founded in the 1530s, right? And of course, the first thing the Spaniards did when they arrived was they built a church. And then my great-great-great-grandfather moved to the town, and he was actually a general manager at Cuervo before leaving them to start Tequila Sauza, which led to some bad blood between us and them for quite some time. My great-grandfather actually got married to my great-grandmother. She was tangentially related to the Cuervo line. And so my great-grandfather got excommunicated from the family for, I think, 5 or 6 years for that fight, which is pretty crazy. We don't have any issues with them now. They come by, we work with them on a couple aspects of the town. But my great-great-great-grandfather founded Tequila Sauza, based it on 3 principles: perseverance, tradition, and high quality. I believe this is a few of the things they're still promoting as the brand values today, and it's obviously been a basis for where we're going in terms of family and fortitude, right? So this is actually was his house, which we have on the town square. So if you come down and see our distillery, we also have a beautiful museum that's dedicated to our family and sort of the history of tequila. We'd love to have people stop by, and we're in the process of actually going through all the documents here and finding out more. We're working with a writer who's going to bring out a book shortly, or within the next 2 years, on some of the details of, you know, the early tequila days, which will be very exciting, and we're excited to share that with you guys when he finds out more. So this is where my great-great-grandfather was born, Eladio Souza. He was one of the first people to export tequila to the United States. You know, so that's one of the things we're hoping to maybe get to the bottom of, is who exported first, because that'll be, of course, an important claim, right, to any brand. But what he sold to the U.S. was Mexican whiskey Souza. So tequila wasn't really known as tequila; it was known as, you know, Mexican whiskey, so the Americans could understand what we were drinking. And he used to take that up to the U.S. in a wooden cart, right? So imagine when you're flying down, just look down out the window and think about, man, if I had to travel in a dusty cart for this journey, it would take a lot longer. There was a few month round trip to the border. He'd go up to the Rio Grande, sell some tequila, and come back. So 3 greats. So great-great-great-grandfather, but yes, Marie Carmen. So my so the Souza history of our line runs from Don Zenobio to Don Eladio to my great-grandfather, Don Francisco. And then my grandmother was his daughter, was Francisco's daughter. And so my dad was born to my grandmother in Chicago. And to delve briefly into that, my grandmother was born in 1933 in Guadalajara. She ended up moving up to the U.S., met my biological grandfather, and stayed there, lived there. When my dad was about 16, I think they came down and did 2 years of schooling in Mexico. And then my dad went back. My grandma, I believe, stayed for a year, and then she moved to San Diego. So it's very, complex history. But that's how, where the Erickson last name comes from, is from my father's father, who was William Erickson. My dad goes by Guillermo, which is William in Spanish, and Erickson Souza from his mother's name. And then I was born William Erickson as well. So, and then hoping, I've got 2 daughters. I'm hoping one of them will take over the business one day. They already like to come in when I'm at my desk and they tell me, I'm going to work now too. And I say, okay, that's great. And then they just end up pounding on my keyboard, which I assume is what they think I do all day. So we've got a number of our first labels that our family ever produced in our museum. And here's a couple. You can see sort of where we got some of our inspiration from, right? What's pretty cool is we actually have one of our safes in the museum. Our family safes we had never opened, and my grandmother hadn't opened it, my dad hadn't opened it. And so we had a professional locksmith come in and open it, and we had a couple copies of pristine labels of Mexican whiskey Souza in there, which is awesome to see, as well as it shows you how important branding and labeling was back even, you know, in the 1800s, right? That you would keep these in your safe because you didn't want anybody to sort of steal your trademark. Which, as an aside, when we came out, you'll notice that some of the branding on some of these items says Los Abuelos in Mexico. We have another brand name in Mexico called Los Abuelos. We got in a trademark dispute with a rum company. The world is very small, but I actually ended up going to the same college as the son of the owner of the rum company that we got in the trademark dispute with. So sort of shows you really just truly how small the world can be. We've got a couple of our first bottles that our family ever made. And then one of the things that I really like to talk about is we have this beautiful painting, a portrait of sort of how tequila was produced in stages, from the Native Americans sort of harvesting it with pulque to the sort of first industrialization of it, which is this. So if you look in the top left, we can see the agaves being cooked here, right? Very steam cooked. We see the guy with the hand axe there, right? Chopping up the agaves. We see the taona still with the donkeys pulling the stone. We see the bateador in there, which I mentioned earlier, right? He's taking the bagasso in there. That's something else we don't do. We don't ferment with the bagasso anymore. That gets composted. And then you see the stills in the bottom right, the guy barreling it in the middle left. And then in the forefront here, right, very down bottom center, we see this guy pouring the tequila back and forth. And for a long time, I made a joke that the guy was making a blue blazer, which is a kind of cocktail you light on fire and pour between two glasses. But what he's actually doing is measuring the alcohol content in there by looking at the bubbles that appear. And this is something I only found out because it turns out there are some very small mezcal producers who are doing the same thing. So, which is pretty neat that, you think of us now being these very advanced people, we've got computers and all this technology, and people living in the past were able to figure things out just a different way than we are, right? Whereas you and I would plug a thermometer in there or a proof gauge, they were working to figure things out on their own, which is pretty neat. So, and then I'll give you guys just a brief synopsis of the agave here before I think we're going to have Roshelley join us to make another cocktail. So we've got 4 kilometers of stone roads inside the facility, which is pretty cool. And those lead straight out to our agave fields. The agave fields start out with a life cycle, we call it rhizome. So these little baby plants that you see growing off of this mother plant here. A mother plant will produce this at 3 and 5 years. We'll take those, about the size of a toranja, which is a grapefruit, right? They get dried out for a few days, and then they get replanted. They get planted about 6 feet in between rows and about 3 feet apart in between plants themselves. So, okay, perfect. Looks like we've got some more questions here that the team is going to give me. So yeah. All right. Perfect. Dave, I might just do those at the end and get through this agave process first, and then we'll do like a little Q&A for the last 10 minutes or so. So we've got this field that's freshly planted, the same field at 2 years old, right? So now you can see they look like little mini agave plants. This is that same field at 3 to 4 years old. So now we can no longer get a tractor down the field to do some maintenance. And so Dave, you want to just pop the questions, and that's perfect. I'll hit them when we come down with this. So so now you can see the plants are really really touching, and we go to a hand weeding and hand harvesting of the plants. There's a lot of maintenance that goes in on these plants, right? You think about this, tequila is the only spirit that is produced with something that takes 6 to 8 years to reach maturity, and then you rip out of the ground, right? So beer, grown in a season with wheat, whiskey, same, wine grows in a season with grapes. Once that initial investment with the wine is paid off, vodka, potatoes, right? Juniper berries every year for gin. So tequila is just unique in the sense that it's a very significant time investment before the fact, as well as after the fact if you're going to do aging, right? So a lot of that flavor profile development you're looking at is this big timeline here. And so there's a huge investment in protecting these, because about 15 or 20 years ago, we had a gray mold come through that devastated the agave industry. It took about, I think, 1 in every 4 plants with it and killed it. And so, we constantly are checking for pests, mold, any sort of disease that we want to maintain the plants with. And then there we did actually use a donkey at one point to pull the tauna, but now we use an electric tug, and I'll show you guys a photo of that in a little bit. But so the plants take 6 to 8 years to reach maturity. When they're mature, they'll start to put up what we call a quiote. We'll let a few of our quiotes flower to make sure that the plants are still sexually reproducing. You get little agave seeds out of these things. And we're doing some timeline testing on how long those take to get to maturity, the ones we told you about with Grover and Scarlet. But most people still use the rhizomes because the rhizomes come out. They're so much more developed. It takes 6 to 8 years. We believe it takes about 14 years to get a ripe agave from a seedling. But it's important to do to maintain the genetic integrity of the species, right? So here's a field what we call inquiotado, which means that the quiotes are coming up. We'll go through about this point and cut these all out. And then we've got about 6 months to harvest them. These are 2 of my dad's friends who run an agave club up in New Jersey, Eric and Mark Glazier. So they run the Agave Idiots. If you guys are in the tri-state area up there and you need a tequila cup to go hang out with. And then we've got the humidors that come in and they chop out all the leaves, right? You can just see them mow down the plants. It takes them about 2 minutes to harvest an agave, which is pretty quick. They start about 5 in the morning though, because the day gets so hot in Mexico. And that is called a cola de jimar, which is like a razor blade mixed with a shovel. And then we're going to take that plant, and we used to, back in the day, Sauza used to use donkeys to take the agaves back in, but we've upgraded slightly to a truck from the 1950s here. So, and agave prices fluctuate wildly. So this truck is worth about $16,000 right now, whereas just a few years ago during the agave dearth, it was worth maybe $1,000 or $2,000. So we kind of expect agave prices to stay up though, with how many people are really shifting the category more towards tequila consumption, more towards 100%, which is fantastic to see. You know, it promotes the higher price promotes more investment in agave as well. So I think we'll see some improvements in, you know, the success of the species as well, which is pretty good. And then we've got some questions in here. That's where the agave section ends. It gets carried into our distillery and then we process it. But let me tackle some of these. So I got a question: how old is the Taona and how often do you have to replace it? So to my knowledge, that Taona is the original one from the distillery. So the thing is probably close to, our distillery closed in 68. So is at least, you know, what is that? It's at least 50 years old, but maybe closer to 80. We've worked on a replacement, but we haven't replaced that one yet. We know we'll have to replace it soon. We had a Taona remade, but it is, I think, weighs like 40% more than our current one is sort of the estimate. So we haven't had to replace it yet, and hopefully we won't have to replace it for at least another, you know, few years. But, and then can we do a single barrel pick when you're there? So we do offer we're in the beginning stages of starting to do a single barrel program. Our goal will probably be to do about 1 or 2 a month beginning from January next year, probably about 2 a month, and then we're hoping to expand it from there. Logistics on that are sometimes kind of escaping us, and we're having some inventory issues right now because the demand for the product is just so high. But that's hopefully a program we're looking to bring to market regularly in about 6 months. And then, do you guys offer distillery tour and hotel packages? We do not have a partnership with any hotels, but we can definitely point you guys in the right direction if you need a hotel recommendation. You know, there's one right next to us, which is Casa Salles. The hotel that Cuervo built in the center of town is also very nice. You know, there's the Quinta Don Jose in the middle of town as well. And so if you go on our website and you fill out a tour request form and you say, hey, I'm coming to town, I need some places to stay to, if you can recommend me, we can link you in via email with one of those hotels without an issue. So, yeah, so we had a question in Spanish, which is why we don't use the Los Abuelos name. And so the reason we don't use the Los Abuelos name in the US is because we lost a trademark dispute. And so if we use the Los Abuelos name, we would have to fight, or we would end up paying a penalty or something. They would be able to sue us and halt our production or shipments in the US. So that's why we use Los Abuelos in Mexico. We won the trademark dispute in Mexico. And the brand we fought against was actually Ron Abuelo, which was pretty crazy that I was taking this kid on an orientation tour when I was in college, just, you know, years later. But so that's why we went with the name Fortaleza, and that's sort of what the brand has become known by internationally as well. So we just really use the Los Abuelos name in Mexico. And then who distributes Fortaleza in the US? It depends on what state you're in. So we have a list of our distributors on our website, but if that is not sufficient, you can always email me, and my email address is billy@ Fortaleza.mx. So it's Billy@Fortaleza.mx. Or if you go on our website and go, hey, I'm trying to contact Billy, I'll see that. And then how does the filtering process work before bottling? So we do have a charcoal filter that we use, Lou, and actually nobody's ever asked me that question before. So I think it gets filtered before bottling. I think it gets filtered actually at the point of just after distillation. And then I think we refilter for particulates for the aged products. But, Lou, I know I got your info, so I'll look that up for you and hit you back. And does anybody else have any other questions? I know we've got just a few minutes until Roshelley joins us. So how can we get on the list to get a barrel? Michael, just go ahead and email me. So, and then Diego, in California, Wine Warehouse is our distributor. So if you need help finding a rep, which I know some of them are, my email is right below. So Billy@Fortaleza.mx. But I know, Diego, I know some of the reps have sort of changed over, and to be honest, I'm a little bit confused as well. So, but perfect. Well, I'll give it another second for anybody whose questions are thinking about them. But if you got a question, just drop it in. Otherwise, maybe we'll head into making another cocktail. Perfect. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
Ellie, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. So awesome. It looks like you're using the Blanco.
Yes. So I use the Fortaleza Blanco in my particular cocktail, which is a milk punch. Lucky for me, I don't have to really do any steps of like actually creating a cocktail on camera with you because it's already prepared. So a little bit about my cocktail. It's called the Miligrama. Miligrama in English, also miligramo, is milligram, and the initials or the acronym for milligram is MG. Yo soy mexicana y guatemalteca, so I kind of wanted to utilize those to put them together because this particular cocktail is an amalgamation of my Mexican and Guatemalan side for both my abuelitas. So some of the ingredients that I used in this was I used fresh tomato juice, carrot juice, cucumber juice, and I used lemon and lime. And then I used the Fortaleza Blanco, some sriracha to give it a little bit of a spice and a kick. And then, of course, whole milk at the very end of the process to be able to allow for the straining, which then produces this really beautiful, clear cocktail. As you can like even see the background through it. That's how perfectly clear it is. So the reason I use these ingredients is because these were pretty heavily utilized in a lot of dishes that I ate when I was younger, whether it be from my abuelita Juanita or my abuelita Meda. Also, another thing is that in Guatemala, my grandfather was a tomato farmer, so that was also a big part of my growing up. And of course, tomatoes are used in a lot of Mexican dishes, from salsas to tacos to everything that you can possibly think of. So that's definitely a big part of who I am. Another reason why I wanted to choose these particular ingredients is because Fortaleza itself has kind of a vegetal quality to it, and milk punch, you can kind of really pull some of those beautiful notes and characteristics. And so that's why I kind of kept it really veggie forward, while it still has like hints of citrus and brightness and just fun and summertime, which also reminds me of going to Mexico when I was little. So yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, so when you drink it, after you've made it, takes about a day or two to make. Once you get like a really nice, beautiful, clear product, then you can just store it in your fridge. For me, I always like to say that the milk punches will last no longer than a week in your fridge just because you're going to want to drink them. They're so delicious. But in actuality, milk punch is quite self-sustainable, and it has a shelf life of pretty indefinitely as long as you make it properly. The milk.
How did you make it?
So the way that I make it is what I do is I take all of the ingredients. So I'll take the tequila, I'll take all the juice and everything, and I'll put that in one particular container. And then I take the milk. In this particular one, I use whole milk, which is probably the best milk to use, but you can use plant-based milks. Coconut milk works really great because it is high in fat content. Then you pour all of your base, your spirit, your juices and everything into your milk. And then what starts happening is a curdlization. So as you can see in this particular bottle, you'll see at the very bottom is all of the milk solids, and those are also all of the particulates that are perishable, so that it pulls out all of those particular components. And then what you're left with on top is just this really nice, beautiful, clear product. But at first, what you're going to have is you'll have something that's really cloudy like this. So you let it sit for about, I usually do it for about 12 hours until everything is fully separated. And then what I do is I'll take a super bag, or also known as a nut bag, because it allows for you to make like nut milks and stuff like that. It's very fine, intertwined pieces of fabric, a lot thinner than, say, cheesecloth. And then I'll strain it through that over a period of about a day or so, just until I get all of the fats completely out of the cocktail. And then what I'm left with is just a really beautiful, clear cocktail that's shelf stable indefinitely. So.
Awesome. Looks beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I really enjoy it. I think that this is a great cocktail for summertime, or if you're just feeling a little nostalgic and missing home, like I do sometimes, and missing your grandparents. This is definitely something for you. So.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much, Shelley.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
So awesome. Well, then as a reminder to our audience here, we assemble the recipes for the Panacea Margarita and the Miligrama and the rest of our other cocktails at the interactive PDF that you can find at pdxcw.com/Fortaleza on the fives. We'll have another one here at 4:05 Eastern for our final Fortaleza on the five with Argenis Calderon from Baltimore, who will be making his cocktail, the Quetzalcoatl. So thank you so much, Shelley, again. And thank you all for tuning in to spend Cinco de Mayo with us.